as we banish this idea of narcissism and raise a community that has banished this narcissism, this distorted truth of inferiority and superiority, we can cultivate people to be themselves. To start my talk, I'd like everybody to, again, if you feel comfortable, to close your eyes. As we close our eyes, we close down one of our main senses, sensing what we're hearing, we're smelling, but also what we're feeling. And so with this welcome to country, I'm going to be speaking in a language that you are familiar with, I assume, but also a language that on a logical level, on a rational level, you may not completely be familiar with, but it's a language that is the product of this environment that is home to many beautiful pieces. Each piece has its own vibration. And so I'll speak in Nyoongar, I'll speak in English. I'm going to sing a song, as all good welcomes have. They have a song. And then I'm going to talk a little bit about that culture, that old culture, and address a couple of those little systems, those little things that made our culture so different to the culture that is dominant worldwide today. Yamba yarn, ngalaka mordwa balapa bibering nija Whadjuk Boodjar. Demonka mamonka yenarra nonaka. Nyereng nija gobadaj Boodjar. Nonaka demonka mamonka ayenarra kadajana balapa nyereng nija ye nonaka bina babarang wa. Berdia, nyereng nija nonaka map. Nija buja ba map, ninjalening nija ye. Berdia ba tundrab, berdia ba trab, ngagonok, Ballardong, balapa boranga, balapa guap weirn, ya kol shwe. Wara weirn, word calling pokaja. Ngalaka nija comberning, nija birdi, ngalaka birdi, nija walburning birdi, nija bibering birdi, ngalaka nija mudichabing. Acknowledging all those paths that have been carved in our cars, on the footpaths, everything that has led to us sharing this space and time tonight. Acknowledging all those that walked that path before each and every one of you return back to earth. All of your demonka, all of your mamanka, all of your grandmothers, all of your grandfathers, all the people that make you, that make us. Shwe. Wara weir and word calling pokaja. It's a command that whenever we would come together as people, we would command the bad spirits, leave the space, leave the room, and not come back. Bad spirits are not just poltergeists, they are energies, they are entities, they are thought forms, and they are beliefs. And these energies, these entities, these thought forms, these beliefs that we carry, they can get polluted and corrupted and distorted when we don't grieve properly, and we don't release and process things properly. When we as a people choose to turn a blind eye and think just because something is out of sight and out of mind, it's okay. It's been 200 years here, but in other places it's been many generations of people having babies and the generations that come after them. Now the survivors. This culture is an old culture, and it doesn't have any other of the other attributes that you see in some of these newer cultures. Because we were lucky on this island in relative isolation to cultivate a culture from a place of love. And now in 200 years, this land has been terraformed, and just like that culture was formed by the terror of the Roman armies colonizing to their neighbours. As a plague, it spread, touching every continent, where before each continent had a people that chose to be connected. And so as I speak in that old language, I'm calling out to thousands of generations of old people who had their own unique vibration. And within that vibration and occupation, a divine division of labour. Whereas individuals, we don't have to be perfect. Whereas individuals, we don't have to do everything. We just have to be good at one thing. We all have these unique gifts. We all have that energy that can be a medicine, that can be a poison, depending on how we dose it. In that old language, calling out to those grandmothers, those grandfathers to hold this space, to hold your light. Tonight, tomorrow, next week, the week after that, for the rest of your life. And as it is held, may the path that you walk in this world be one of dignity and respect. But as we connect to our vessels right now, as we connect to what I've been talking about, all those thought forms, those beliefs, those energies, those entities that come from surviving genocide, that come from surviving colonization, that come from surviving famines, that come from surviving and developing coping mechanisms that leave us imbalanced. And as we role model that imbalance for the next generation, they role model it for the next after them. Within our culture, we have stories that remind us of the critical part that we play within the ecosystem, not separate from it. And one of the big stories of this Nyoongar Boodjar on which upon we are seated is the story of the Mungart, the carers of everything. And if you've ever had a chance to connect to Uncle Noel Nanup, that's a story he holds. If you Google Uncle Noel Nanup, that's a story you can find on Google. So I won't tell it tonight. But in that story, the Whadjuk, the emu, began to show signs of this energy, this entity, this thought form, this belief of superiority and inferiority, this narcissistic idea that he was separate from the whole. And in that moment, in our origin story, he and that energy was banished into the middle of the Wallaby, into the Milky Way. And when we look up that way at night at a certain time of year, you can see the outline of that emu. You can see that narcissism that was banished, because these thought forms, these beliefs, these energies, these entities, they can be banished or they can be welcomed. We can water them, we can validate them, we can give them power, we can take that away. Usually we do that with the smoke of the leaves that are adorned on my arms. We would do ceremony, we would sing and we would dance, but don't have the chance to do that today, so I'm going to sing a song which is about the lightning, that has a vibration that helps with the elimination of these energies, so that as you listen to what I have to share, none of that information is distorted. None of those blocks need to come up, because we all feel safe and understand that this is 2025 and we're not in our parents' time that they grew up in, and their parents' time. We're not in their places. We're here right now. Bindere. Bindere. Bindere, bindere, walke maralo. Borrele mernei, erdi erdandeba. Borrele mernei, erdi erdandeba. Bindere, bindere, walke maralo. Bindere, bindere, walke maralo. Borrele mernei, erdi erdandeba. Borrele mernei, erdi erdandeba. Bindere, bindere, walke maralo. Every single step that we take is a unique step that's never been stepped before. Every single step that we take, we are guided by many different spirits, some good and some bad, some thought forms, some beliefs, some defenses that impede our ability to connect. And so when we do a welcome to country, and I'm glad I was able to do this welcome to country, I'm glad that you chose to close your eyes, I'm glad that you chose to listen, I'm glad that you chose to feel and be present. We always have a choice in that unique path that we walk, a left, a right. We have a yes, we have a no. We have an option to connect or to disconnect. We have a chance to confront or to avoid. We have a chance in every given moment to rewrite what has been written before us, what has been written into us by our parents, every page, every stage. In particular, that age for us as Nyoongar people, understanding from 0 to 7, we're just a sponge. And we don't have that capacity to discern whose energy is mine, whose energy is someone else's. And so we soak it all up. All of the fears, all of the worries, all of the anxieties, all of the dreads. We soak it up. And our word for that learning process is kaart again. Your kaart is your head, your jen is your foot. Every single song, every single story, every single fight, every single moment informs every step that we're going to take. And so a smoking ceremony is a stock take. When people would travel from one place to the next, we would carry that message stick with the wood of the trees that are products of that environment that grow within those soils. And we would wait on the border. And that smoking ceremony takes away and banishes all of those energies that can impact our ability to connect, our ability to be present, so that when we come together, we are balanced, and so that when we leave, we are balanced too. And underpinning this old culture is one system that is in many of these old cultures, these indigenous cultures that are now identified by 8% of the world's population, but protect 80% of the world's biodiversity. That's because these cultures are ones of connect. We can open our eyes now if we feel like opening our eyes. We can connect a little bit and we can identify that's a tree, that's a person, that's some grass, that's a houseplant over there. And we spend a bit more time connecting, absorbing, downloading, observing, learning. And we can begin to understand what type of tree, what type of houseplant, what kind of person what type of grass that is. We can connect a bit more and we begin to sympathise. We begin to identify when trees need more water, when people are upset, which houseplants need a bit more sunlight. And then we can go a bit more and we get to this stage of empathy where we feel the thirst, we feel the sickness, we feel the irritation. And then after that, we get to this stage of respect. And that's what I heard from a young age from Uncle Richard Wally, that our culture is one of respect, respect, respect. And in my journey of being able to travel around the world, age 19, my first United Nations conference, meeting all of these people from all the corners of the world that were like me, but in a different way. We had all endured forces that told us not to speak the languages we spoke about in those conferences, adorning ourselves with the bits of country from all of those countries that we came from. And in these spaces, I saw what had happened in the last few hundred years, not just to us, but the entire world. It's been a choice. It's been a path that we have followed, one of disconnection, one of avoidance, because the truths of the matter of how we were once 100% of the people here, now 3% of the people here, once 100% of the land in this country, being really healthy, being in balance, that number has changed, that figure has changed because of a culmination of many different decisions over a few generations. 200 years, 190 years, it's not that long. My friends in different places of the world have endured the same pressures. It was illegal for them to speak their language. They were threatened for practicing their culture. They took it underground. They did it in secret because they knew how important it was. And just like all of their ancestors and my ancestors made that choice, and we go back far enough into our bloodlines, there are many of our grandmothers, grandmothers and grandfathers, grandfathers that lived in a really balanced way, that lived in community. You can't have community if you can't connect with yourself, if you don't respect yourself, if you don't have love for yourself, if you don't have an unconditional love for yourself. And so that system that is in all of these cultures is the Brrrbook system, we call it the totemic system. It's a system of that divine division of labour, where there is a certain creature that is a feature of the land in which you are born into, that requires you as the human to protect it, and they will protect you in different ways you can't really see. And that is your brother. That is your sister. There's levels and levels to learning about who you are. In our stories, there are stories where the Warlich with a big wedge-tail eagle is the hero and he saves the day. There are other stories where he uses that power to belittle and bully and make himself feel powerful by picking on all the other birds. Each and every one of us have that unique vibration that has its strengths and has its weaknesses. We have a shadow that in the wrong environments that will be brought out, but in the right environments we will shine that unique colour, emanate that unique warmth that this ecosystem that our community needs us to radiate. The shadow is connected to fear. That hero, that highest vibration is connected to love. And so when we are born, nobody can take away who we are. Nobody can take away our respect, just like nobody could take away our food or our water. That's the reason why we have no word for please or for thank you in our language. You are divinely who you are, and nobody could ever take that away. These words, please and thank you, they come from times that are not 2025. They come from times where people had to beg from a place of fear. They had to belittle themselves for those that monopolised that food and that water and that respect. And they were very different times than what we're in right now. As we banish this idea of narcissism and raise a community that has banished this narcissism, this distorted truth of inferiority and superiority. We can cultivate people to be themselves. Along my journey, that has been my main lesson. Many different elders, many different people coming to me at the right time and reaffirming, be yourself. You can't be anyone else. When I put these leaves on and I hold these sticks and these rocks and these feathers, I'm not trying to be somebody that was here 200 years ago. I'm here to be me. And I'm here to remind everybody that in this community, we have obligations even if we forgot them. We are connected even if we haven't felt that for a while. That obligation doesn't just extend to each other as humans, but all of those different pieces of the ecosystem that play an equally critical part in the maintenance of that balance. That status quo, not this status quo. This status quo and the beneficiaries of this status quo are the 1%. We are the 99%. We are the people that have all of the power to choose left instead of right, to choose to connect, to choose to respect. There are reasons why these conversations aren't held too often. There are reasons why sometimes I feel lots of different feelings and emotions when I speak about this stuff, because it's very triggering. Because our parents and their parents and their parents didn't sit down and release this stuff. They rationalised it. And that's why when I was in year 2, I was experiencing racism on the playground. An older kid coming up to me and saying, "Hey, are you a Boorloo?" And I looked to my white friend and I said, "What's that mean?" And he says, "Nyoongar." And I said, "Yeah, I'm a Boorloo." Because up until that point, my identity was absent of racism. My dad raised me to be a proud Nyoongar. I walked around school, middle of Makaru, the coldest time of year, with no jumper, saying, "Nyoongars don't get cold." Proudly saying to my teachers, "I don't need sunscreen, Nyoongars don't get burnt." Looking at the footy on the weekend and saying, "Dad, we relate to him." He say, "Yep." We relate to him. He say, "Yep." We relate to him. And I was a bit annoying at school with my peers and my teachers, bragging about Buddy Franklin when he kicked that 100. But that was my identity up until primary school and high school, when I began to experience this other connotation, this other association with what it meant to be Nyoongar. And it was negative. It was heavy. And I feel like these kids on the playground, and even my friends older, and we're out the playground and we're at parties and hanging out. All of these words, all of these ideas, they weren't their own. They came from a different time, they came from a different place. But this universe is based on that law of free will. And in that story, as we banish that narcissism with our free will, and each generation after that banished that from their ecosystem, we can banish that too. We can banish the racism, we can banish the fear, we can banish all of these things that make us coming together not as clear as it should be. Da bakarn, da bakarn. Da bakarn kulling. Slowly, 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 travel slowly so we can enjoy the ride. Travel slowly so that how you feel inside as you're traveling, it's peace and it's calm. Travel slowly so that every seed that we sow and every bit of nourishment that we grow and gather, it's something that is sustainable instead of unsustainable. It's something loving instead of fearful. Go slowly so that we can travel with an intent and leave every impression, every step, every conversation, every laugh, every moment, so that path that they follow is something that they deserve to follow and deserve to walk. Thank you very much.